Welcome to the Leadership Art Podcast. I'm your host, Art Robbins, and it's great to have you join us. The Leadership Art Podcast features insightful conversations with industry leaders who lead with purpose. Here you will discover practical insights, powerful lessons, and everyday inspiration to elevate your own impact, whether you are leading now or preparing to step up. We want to inspire you to be the best leader you can be. And today on Leadership Art, we welcome Liana Colombelli, Vice President of Global Sales at the Adecco Group and a seasoned leader in strategic consulting and human resources. Liana has a career guiding international market expansion and building high-performance teams. She brings a global perspective shaped by work across Europe and collaborations with leading brands such as AstraZeneca, Amex, British Airways, and Luxottica. Beyond her executive role, Liana is a certified professional coach and trainer for FID, Ezra, and Malaya, and founder of Travel Coaching Experience, a venture that fuses coaching with transformative travel. She helps individuals and teams navigate change, strengthen communication and leadership strategies, and unlock their full potential. And Liana, it's great to have you join us today.
Thank you so much, Art. It's a pleasure to be here.
No, great. I'm really looking forward to our conversation and hearing your perspective on how leaders can be more effective. So maybe to start and to set a context for the whole discussion, tell us about your own personal journey and how it shaped your principles and values around leadership.
Absolutely. And thank you, Art, for the opportunity. And congratulations on this series. Really, really interesting.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Yeah, so I've always been fascinated by leadership. I have to say that I'm fascinated by its different styles and the impact that leadership has on people. That curiosity led me to deep dive into the topic, and I studied more international and intentionally. So, in my career, as you said, I've had the privilege of experience leadership in a very direct way. I worked for several multinational companies across different sectors as a global sales leader. And I've managed international teams both directly and indirectly. But at the same time, I think that my journey in leadership has strengthened through my experience as a professional coach and trainer, specialized in leadership and performance. And for sure, this has given me a completely different perspective about leadership. Because what I do right now, it's really supporting individuals and teams to become better leaders. So it has allowed me to look at leadership not only from a business standpoint, which is important nowadays, but also from a human growth perspective, I would say.
So I think what's interesting, Leanne, is you started your career in sales and you continue to do sales, but at the same time, you've bridged into a leadership and coaching trajectory, which you often don't see that kind of transition that you're now coaching in addition to your selling role.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, this has really changed the perspective and it's really changed my way to look at leaders. So, what can I see from my experience at work and my experience as a coach is that for sure, leadership in general, it's not just about making decisions. It's about inspiring people, fostering growth and creating environments where everyone can thrive and feel safe. So, for sure, I believe that leadership is a journey, it's not a title. But also, every day, one should find his own styles of leadership. Not only if you are a leader by title, but because you are a leader of your own life. So, there is always a mindset shift that can happen and need to happen in everyone and in leaders. You are the captain of your boat. So making the mindset shift and understand that first of all, you are a leader of your life and then you are a leader in your job or, leading a team or in your everyday life with your family, with friends. It's very, very important. And I would like to really explore today with you, Art, how we can do that.
Yeah, it'd be great if we could convey some lessons or pointers to the audience because a lot of people are either aspiring leaders or they're in a leadership position and they want to become more effective and enhance their impact. And it's interesting that you talk about style because that's topic that's come up in a lot of episodes. I think that's something that people struggle with because they're looking for examples, they're looking for role models, and they're saying, well, in order for me to be successful, should I be behaving like this person or that person? How do I reconcile that with who I am and my own values and what my strengths and weaknesses are? So I wonder if you throw all that into the mix. How do you process that? How do you come up
It's
with
a
the right answers?
Yeah, it's a good mix indeed. It's a good mix. And well, leadership for sure is not a static skill. It evolves with experience, challenges, and also with the people we work with that has an influence on us. For example, early in my career, I believed that effective leadership style had to be authoritative. So has to be very directive, focus on giving instruction and controlling outcomes.
Okay. And what made you believe that early in the career?
Yeah, I mean, that was when I started actually. So when I started, that was, I thought, effective leader were. Actually, I also had some example of leaders that were like that.
So you
But
were
then,
exposed to that. You work for people
exactly,
like that. Okay.
yeah, I was exposed to that. And I think that probably in the past, that was the style of leadership that everyone recognized as the universal language of leadership.
Mhm.
Then, with time, things have changed a lot with the rise of emotional intelligence studies towards empathic, empathetic leadership, coaching leadership, things have changed. And personally, I understood that both from my professional experience, but also from my personal path when I decided to embark in a personal growth path. And over time, through this personal and professional growth path, I realized that the real power of leadership lies in empowering people, not in controlling people, but empowering people, listening actively to them, understand who they are, what are their passions, what's their mission, what moved them. And also the fact of fostering collaboration in individuals and in teams, it's very important. And probably this is the right mixture or the right mix of leadership, which we can say is made by three main ingredients, which are empathy, first of all, for sure. So put ourselves in the shoes of the others, understand what they feel, what they are doing, what they would like to do, what moved them. Authenticity, so really be real to yourself, showing your true self. It's the only way you can influence and encourage these people to be themselves. And adaptability, so a very good mixture of the three, and flexibility, adaptability, especially nowadays with the changing environment that we are living, especially in organization, but also if we look at the macroeconomic condition, is essential to support leadership and also to create an environment where your teams, your colleagues feel supported and motivated.
Those are great lessons. I think you summed it up very well. And empathy, authenticity, adaptability. Another topic that's come up in earlier podcasts is leaders being aware of themselves, knowing who they are and being comfortable being put out of their comfort zone. If you talk about empowering others, you might feel like, well, I'm ceding control to other people. I'm making them accountable and responsible for their destiny. So you have to be there to support them, but you also have to let them do the work and potentially fail or not do as well as someone else who's more experienced or yourself if you did the work for them. So, I mean, how do you advise a leader of how to gauge this? Because it's a spectrum, right?
Yeah,
It's not an
yeah.
all or nothing thing. And sometimes the devil's in the details, right? It's how do you manage the team on a day-to-day basis, create that empowering environment and that environment of
Yeah.
trust.
Yeah, it's not an easy task, and it comes with experience, but also with studying, I would say. So when you are in a leadership position, as I said, it's not that you are a leader by title, but it's leader because you take the responsibility of growing your team. You care for the others, you care for their development, you
Mhm.
care for creating an environment of psychological safety where everyone can feel heard and valued first.
Mhm.
You empower the individual, but you also have to empower the group. This is the intention, and the intention need to be wise. It's not just a matter of achieving results and being seen in a good way by your boss. It's because you are responsible for growing people and to help them and support them to become the better version of themselves. Because at the end, this will have a long lasting impact. So this will be rewarding. And we're not speaking about quick wins, just achieving the targets or, selling the right amount of products of the company, for example, or achieving the results. It's allowing people to express themselves and to contribute to their own growth. So that's why accountability is also so important.
I think about my own experiences, and you're always focused on, well, I want to do the right thing. I want to have the right impact. I want to get the results. One thing that I've learned as I've gotten feedback from people over the years is sometimes the most subtle things you do have the biggest impact. It's not that, oh, wow, we exceeded our sales targets 3 years in a row. It might be something subtle that you said, or the way you made them feel in a period of crisis. I've had people come to me after working for me some number of years and say, I don't remember the things you said in the meetings, but I remember the way you made me feel. And it
Mm.
made me feel very positive about myself and the team and the company, even if we were going through hard times. I don't even think I realized I did that. I mean, obviously, that was the outcome I wanted, but I was more focused on the messages I was giving as opposed to conveying that sense of safety. But that, I guess, came out of my leadership style and the connection that I had with the people in the room.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you 100%. Even the little gesture, the fact that you show up, that you care for people, I mean, probably leave, as you said, a lasting impact. So people remember you not because you help them achieve their target for the quarter, but they remember you because you helped them to achieve an issue that they were facing at the time, or you had a little gesture that helped them cope with their difficulties and with their bad days. I agree 100% on that.
I'm curious then, in your coaching role, you're obviously jumping into situations that already exist, right?
Yeah.
A leadership is facing some challenges that they want to address. I mean, how do you approach that to gain the leader's trust and be an effective coach?
Well, that comes with the studying and the experience. I would say that, first of all, coaching has been a game changer in my personal life and also in my leadership journey. Coaching is not about giving answers to leaders or giving answers to teams or to individuals. It's not about suggesting what your next step will be. So it's really a way to help others unlock their potential. And how can you help others to unlock their potential? So, coaching uses three basic techniques, which are very strong and powerful. So, first of all, powerful questions. So, you need to ask the right question to the person you are supporting. So there is a huge use of silence in coaching sessions, and you can use it also in team building activities, but it's more in individual sessions because through your silence, you allow the individual to explore themselves. The individual or the person has already his answers inside of him. So it's just a matter to support them to, let's say, give a voice to these answers. And silence is a powerful tool, and also active listening. So, for sure, powerful questions, silence, and active listening. Active listening because the technique that a good coach can use are linked to what the person is expressing. So, after the internal exploration is finished, you need to be able to actively listen to them in order to ask the next questions and achieve the results you would like to achieve. So it's a methodology, I would say, that mainly focus on your present and your desired future.
Are you saying that ultimately the leader, you're the coach, the leader is your client, the leader ultimately has to come up with the answers themselves, but
Yes,
you're creating a supportive framework and environment that enables them to
absolutely.
do that?
Absolutely. You give the person the time to find their own questions and their own answers.
Mhm.
So, even a leader, in my opinion, should ask themselves very often these questions. What's my potential? What is this unique feature that I can use and bring at the service of others? So it's important also for leaders. Sometimes you don't have time to ask those important questions to yourself because you have your routine, you are in this daily stress, of accomplishing your task at work. But it's important really to stop to reflect and to ask ourselves these questions if you don't have the chance to have a coach that help you and
Yeah.
support you
Well,
doing that.
I'm very pleased to hear that asking the right questions is the first step. I believe in so many aspects of business that's not done. I mean, people are just acting and doing, and they forget to ask the right questions, and then they wonder, why did this fail? Why am I in the wrong place? I actually just saw this great article. There's a lot of buzz these days about why 95% of AI projects are failing, according to MIT. And there's this great article saying that we should learn from history. We should learn from the Greek philosophers. They were masters at asking the right questions. They actually gave a framework and said, if you could just ask, these 4 or 5 questions before you embark on an AI project, you could preempt the reasons why the project would fail. You could cement why you're doing it, make sure you're doing the right thing, make sure you're achieving the right outcome. But if you don't ask those questions, you could just go off into a black hole and ultimately the project will fail. So people are so concerned that they're going to be measured by activity that they forget about what's necessary to achieve the right outcome.
True, I agree. I mean, 100%. That's why coaching is so important, but also, asking ourselves the right question from time to time. So, this is essential, in my opinion, because coaching can encourage self reflection, accountability, authenticity, growth. So, all the value that we were mentioning at the beginning, and which are the basics of leadership. This approach can not only boost the individual performance, but also can build and help building a culture of trust and continuous learning. That nowadays, with the advent of AI, as you mentioned before, art is mandatory. So it's not more an option, let's say. It's essential to get it.
One thing I like to explore, since we're talking about some current topics here, is from the eyes of the younger generation and Gen Z. Does that change the rules of the game or the demands on leadership to effectively connect with Gen Zers?
You touched a very delicate, sensitive topic
That's why I'm
nowadays.
here. I'm
Exactly.
trying to ask the right questions.
True. You're already learning that. Well done. Of course, of course. So yes, so we can speak about the Gen Z, about millennials, but especially Gen Z, I would say. So this generation has different values compared to our generation, for example, or from the Gen X. So this generation really value purpose, transparency, and flexibility. And also, they expect leaders to be different from our leaders. So, we spoke about the authoritative style of leadership. So, probably this is not what Gen Z is expecting.
Mhm.
So, they expect leaders to be authentic, again, that they speak their true self. They expect leaders to be accessible. I want to speak to you now, and I can speak to you now. So, I don't need to wait for ages before having the possibility to speak to you, and they expect leaders to be socially responsible. So this is very important for them nowadays. And for me, this means adapting communication styles when you are a leader of this generation. Being open to feedback, so open to give and to receive constructive feedback, and also create opportunities for growth. So, leadership today for this generation is less about authority and more about partnership. This is general, but of course, then when you have to deal with Gen Z, personality is important. So you have to take into account, okay, the personality of your team. Let's say which kind of energy you have in the room, which kind of personality and dominant attitude you have in the room. But general, I would say that Gen Z really value purpose, transparency, and flexibility.
No, I've seen that as well. And I think another phenomena is there also seems to be a lower level of trust towards the corporation, towards the business. And, that may be because the company isn't as loyal to the employee as they used to be. You don't have the concept of lifetime employment or a one company career anymore. People enter the workforce, they're happy to get a job, but they have no idea how long they're going to work for that
Mm,
company, and they feel
yeah.
they don't have total control over it with layoffs, reorgs, what have you. So It seems for a lot of people entering the workforce, there's either a skepticism or,
Mm.
well, I really have to put my priorities ahead of the company's priorities. So leaders, almost like you go on the golf course and you have a handicap to start with. You're not starting on an even playing field here. I had to deal with that issue.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, flexibility is very important. So they are not the kind of generation that enter the office at 9 and leave the office at 6. They want to have the power of deciding their working hours. They want to decide when to work, where to work, and how to work. And in generally, they follow what they like. They follow their passions. So they are not loyal to a company if their daily jobs or their mission also, there is not an alignment, sorry, on mission and on purpose for them. So they really follow what they want to do in a specific moment. So probably yes, there is a sense of loyalty to the company as we had in the past has been, let's say, lost with this new generation. But they can, of course, bring innovations, new attitude also of, let's say, looking at the environment, looking at the work environment, I would say. They are more concerned about being socially responsible. So for sure, it's a value added for the company. So probably they are just bringing different features, but it doesn't mean that they are negative or positive. So they have to find their way of contributing, of course, to the world, probably in a different way.
Yeah, and I also think that a good leader can create more loyalty between the employee and the employer by developing the trust, by exercising the skills you talked about. I mean, a lot of times employees loyal to a company because of the person they work for, and
Yeah.
it'll make them want to work for the company longer and do a
Yeah.
better job. Another thing I like to explore, I mean, you're based in Italy, right? Very lucky, beautiful place,
Yeah,
obviously.
it is. Of
But
course.
but you've worked, from that vantage point, I mean, you've worked with many global companies and multicultural teams. I wonder if you could sort of give a perspective of that. Again, what is the leadership challenge or opportunity when you're faced with many different cultures and diversity?
Absolutely. So I've always been attracted by international environments. So I always felt that they could provide an added value. I've always worked with multicultural teams. And I have to say that that can be both rewarding but also challenging. So for sure, if you consider different perspective, they can foster creativity, they can foster innovation, and also develop probably a stronger problem solving. But they also require leaders to navigate different communication styles, different expectations, different cultural beliefs that are still there or bias. So I think that when working in multicultural environment and when you are a leader in a multicultural environment, the priority should be creating this psychological safety. So ensuring that everyone feels heard and valued and not judged. This is fundamental. So, having a global mindset today, it's no longer optional, I would say. It's essential for everyone for having an effective leadership.
We use the term diversity, and diversity has emerged as one of those powder keg words. It elicits very strong reactions on both sides. What's your perspective of the value of diversity, and to what extent should a leader be focused or not focused on it? Some people are saying we shouldn't be focused on diversity, we should be focused purely on meritocracy. A dialogue has emerged where there's almost no overlap between the two, which, to be brutally honest with you, I find, mind boggling because to me, the two are by no means mutually exclusive. You can achieve both diversity and meritocracy, but there seems to be a school of thought that, well, pick a side. It's one or the other. And
Mhm.
if that's the case within each company, the
Mhm.
leaders of that company are ultimately responsible for
Mhm.
figuring out where to point the needle and how
Yeah.
to do the right thing for the business and the people that they serve.
Yeah, probably nowadays, and especially in the US, is still a sensitive topic, and it is a delicate and sensitive topic having diversity. But from my experience, what I can say is that diversity always helps to reach results and get to an outcome. So if you have a diverse team of different ages, different generations in one team, and different cultures, because we spoke about, international, we spoke about Europe. So Europe, for example, has different countries, and each country has different way of working, different thought about leadership, different thought in general about, professional environment and life. So this means that every time you deal with a multicultural environment, you are pushed to be open to the diversity and challenging the status quo. So I think that it's here the benefit of diversity, just to have also different perspective and to acknowledge the different perspective and become aware of the different perspective can bring innovative solutions. So that's why diversity is so important, in my opinion.
Yeah, in some prior episodes, we've heard the term diversity of thought. That's
Mm,
really what benefits the business. In order to get diversity of thought, you need to bring diversity of experience. Then you get into some of the demographic aspects of diversity.
so-
Yes. So,
exactly.
but
So
ultimately, what benefits the business is having that diversity of thought because, like you said, you innovate better, you get better outcomes, you could serve a broader market, so forth.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. One final aspect of leadership I'd like to explore with you is the whole mental health aspect.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
these times are so stressful. These people are under so much pressure to perform and everything's changing and trying to keep up with it. How do you advise leaders to manage stress, to avoid burnout, to
Mhm.
maintain a balance, all of it?
Yeah, I mean, I have a special consideration for this topic, for burnout, because it's a real risk now in these timings for both leaders and their teams. I think that there is not a recipe to prevent burnout, actually. Of course, we need to be attentive to the signals, but I think that here again, it's really important having a mindset shift. It's important not to identify ourselves with our job. So we are not our work, actually. I think that we serve ourselves and the others through our job, right?
Mhm.
So having a good balance between your personal and professional life, it's important. Today, I mean, I hear during my team buildings or training sessions that people doesn't have this balance between personal and professional life. So it's essential to create space for yourself, take care about yourself and be compassionate with yourself, forgive yourself, right? If you are not able to accomplish something for a specific deadline, it's okay. It's fine. So that's why also the compassionate element it's so important to prevent burnout.
Yeah, a lot
So
of people are really hard on themselves if
yeah.
they miss a target or something doesn't go right. But I've always believed that, well, first of all, I'm a baseball fan. So, the concept of batting 1,000, right? That means you get a hit every time you're at bat. That never happens. I mean, the best baseball players hit 300. They only get hit 3 out of every 10 times, and they're in the top of the league. But you learn from your failures or you
Yes.
learn from your disappointments. And you have to have that mindset to be willing to do that and say, okay, I may not get on base 7 out of 10 times, but what can I learn from those 7 times to make sure I get on base 3 out of 10 times, or maybe even 4 out of 10 times?
Yeah. Exactly that. And learn from our mistakes. So forgive ourselves if we make a mistake, but then learn from our mistake and go on. Dedicate time to yourself, to your hobbies, families, friends, everything that can feed your soul and your heart. I think that's so
Very, very
important.
good advice. Who have been some of your own role models, Leanna?
Yeah. So first of all, and I probably that's a common trait that I heard also in a different in your podcast. My parents. My parents for sure are my first role model.
That's the number
So
one role model I've heard.
number one role model, because it's thanks to them, to their sacrifice, to their dedication to work. They are both hardworking individual. That I am who I am actually. So that's probably my first role model. So I always had my father as an example because he also, let's say, he didn't have the right probably conditions, the right means to study, to continue their studies, but he was brave. He decided to found his own company when he was 40. So he was already in age and he decided to found his own company and to carry on, and he was successful. So he always gave myself and my brothers the example that if you have a passion and if you work hard and if you have a purpose, you will find your way in life and you will reach your objectives. So this is for sure my first role model, I would
Well,
say.
that's a great role model. You don't need any more role models after that.
Yeah, I think so. And then you can mention everyone. I mean, personally, I like non-violent leaders. So let's say a personality like Dalai Lama, those are probably because I'm also now approaching this mindfulness environment. So I follow those compassionate leaders, I would say. But the
Okay.
first role model, it's for sure my parents.
We might need another episode to explore the mindfulness side
Exactly.
of
We need
Liana.
it.
So, I mean, we're pretty close to the end of our time here. For the audience's benefit, what would you recommend they could do differently tomorrow? Like if there's one or two key actionable takeaways that says, okay, I can improve my leadership effectiveness, what would you say?
Mm. Yeah, no, thank you for this question, Art. I think it's very important to touch it because we really spoke about different things. But at the end of the day, leadership is about people. So if we empower others, we embrace diversity, as we said, and lead with presence. So that's why we also mentioned mindfulness, the fact of being present.
Mhm.
We don't just achieve results, but we leave a lasting impact. So I think that my hope for today is really have your audience reflect on their own leadership style, practice mindfulness, presence, and create environments where the team can truly thrive. So at the end of the day, leadership is a journey and every step matters.
That's a great way to sum up the conversation. And Liana, you gave us so many great pointers here and a lot to think about. I'm sure that many of our listeners would like to stay in touch and follow you. What would be the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the social media, so through LinkedIn, they can find me. I also have a website, so wherever they type my name, they will find me. So happy to connect.
And you have this travel venture as well. I guess they can go on trips to that
Exactly.
part of the equation. A
Absolutely.
lot of different ways to engage with Liana. Well, great. Well, on that note, Liana, thanks again so much for being our guest today on the Leadership Art Podcast. And I also want to thank, as always, our listeners and our followers for joining us and for your continued support. So until the next episode of Leadership Art, this is your host, Art Robbins. And remember, it's your lead.